Hello everyone, so in my other video about Huff Paranormal, the one about the dowsing rods, I mentioned that he had a video talking to James Randi's ghost, and I expressed some distaste for it. Specifically I said this: that video makes me want to throw up in my mouth, such as it is, and I definitely stand by that. I also said I might make a video about it at some point, and I did not mean that at all. But unfortunately, this month I found my Loonbag subscriptions to be really boring, so let's just do this, I guess. Now, I'm gonna rearrange the video so that the actual spirit session, the conversation with James Randi, comes first. Now, basically, the format of these type of videos is that some audio plays, and the video creator puts a subtitle over it saying what they think it says. And this helps the audience to hear the same thing, even if they would not otherwise. I'm not going to make it that easy on Huff. What I'm going to do is black out those subtitles and replace them with some of my own. And that'll make it a bit easier to decide if what's supposedly being said is actually what's being said, clearly and unambiguously, or if it's all really just about pattern seeking and interpretation. Here we go.
Okay, guides, spirits.
Yes, can I help you?
I'm looking to reach out to James Randi, who passed away at the age of 92.
What do you mean? He's already hovering over your box. Oh, that's not a ghost? Gee, you could have fooled me. What are you going to tell me next, Huff? It's just a lens flare? I'm not supposed to believe my lying eyes?
He was, basically became famous for debunking claims of magical powers, psychic abilities, and the like.
Yeah, and he would have made easy work of you, you total hack.
And I followed his progress throughout the years.
And that's the end of that thought. Not sure why that was relevant, but okay.
And tonight we try to reach him from the other side that he didn't believe in.
For the record, I find what you're doing really disgusting and cynical. And so, as revenge, when you die, presumably of old age, I'm gonna not try to reach you from the no other side that you don't believe doesn't exist.
James Randi, if you are out there, can you come through this device tonight, through me, and leave us a message?
I'm in heaven, and it's wonderful. I'm here with all my old friends, my deceased friends and my family, and all the puppy dogs and the kittens that I used to have when I was a little girl. And I love you, and I'll always be with you. Goodbye.
Okay. Here's what Randi really said. Jesus, Randi got rude in his death. James, this is a serious spirit session. This is no time for catcalling and threats of violence.
Did I hear you say visit?
Sounds like he's gonna give you a visit you won't forget.
James Randi, are you here?
I'm here.
It's nice that there's no rain in his coffin, but his family was too cheap to bury him in his clothes? Ugh, I'm gonna write a letter about this to somebody.
Okay. There's obviously a couple spirits here. We're looking for James Randi. Can he come through?
What, you think James Randi's above nudity? If the spirit's naked, it can't possibly be him. It's gotta be somebody else. It's the afterlife, man. Don't be so stuffy about it. I don't think he wants to talk to you. I think you're interrupting something.
Alright, I turned out another light I had. It was distracting me.
Yeah, this is really rigorous, difficult work. Can't be getting distracted.
Okay, we're calling out still to James Randi. Skeptic extraordinaire. Believed in no afterlife, didn't believe in spirits.
Do you think you'd believe in it after watching one of your amazing spirit sessions? And if not, do you have any idea why not? Or is it just going to be the standard, oh, he's just stubborn, he doesn't want to believe me excuse?
Randi, are you out there?
Oh no, Huff, you gotta stop him. He's in a rush to get to that meeting and he's forgotten that he's naked. He's gonna be humiliated. You gotta do something.
Randi, are you out there? Where are you?
Man, seriously, I've watched quite a bit of Randi's stuff and he never talked like that. Do you think something's bothering him? Maybe it's that he can't find any clothes anywhere.
You're dead, but where are you? Is your spirit alive?
Oh, that's a relief. The thought of an old man stuck in heaven for eternity with no clothes on just because his family was cheap, that would have broken my heart. Maybe he borrowed some clothes from one of those other spirits?
You're right here. Your spirit is here, correct?
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down, Randi. No, your spirit's not here. You're just 6 feet under, decomposing into dirt, right? Fist bump, B.
Do you now believe in an afterlife, James Randi?
Hey, Randy, there's no need for that kind of dehumanizing rhetoric. You never would have put up with that stuff when you were alive. Don't think dying gets you off the hook.
Alright.
Oh, Mr. Randy, you are something else.
Where is your soul?
Nice, high five. I would say to be careful doing that at your age, what with the coronavirus, but I think you'll be fine this time. Drink one for me.
Hello, hello?
No, don't go. The next question might be better.
You're in heaven?
What are you, deaf? He said he's had enough. You can't just ask questions like hello. This is James motherfucking Randy. You gotta ask some hardballs.
That's amazing, because that's a pretty direct message validation.
What, him basically ending the interview? Now, when people do that, it doesn't just mean they think they're losing the argument. Sometimes they just think your question was weak and they've had enough.
Can you tell the people that you are real?
Yeah.
Mr. Randy, that's offensive. You don't know if this gentleman has a limp or dresses up in leather bodysuits. You need to apologize. I'm not sure what for specifically, but you should do it anyway.
So that last message was telling in the James Randi session, that basically saying when he died he didn't know where to go. Now there was another spirit saying he was in the light. That started off with James Randi's voice saying he was visiting.
What on earth are you talking about? Were you and I listening to the same spirit session? I thought it was pretty obvious what was going on. I mean, it was right there on the screen, and you could tell that's what he was saying. Clear as a bell.
I thought that was a very cool, very short session, but very, very cool.
I don't know, I kind of like the old polite James Randi. It was sort of disappointing to hear. He should leave the rudeness to the younger generation. Now, obviously, not a single piece of the text I just showed came from Huff. And James Randi said none of those things. And the device itself said none of those things. In fact, the device itself said absolutely nothing coherent. It was just a jumbled up mess of human voice type sounds that you can interpret pretty much whatever way you want. Of course, some interpretations match the sounds better than others, by which I mean mine were a whole lot better than Huff's. For example, if you don't have a clue how he hears "he's in the light" from that, well, I don't either. Anyway, if you're into spending a little bit of time on this, try coming up with some interpretations of your own. And if you do, leave them in the comments to delight and amuse. So now, if you didn't already know, you're starting to get an idea how silly this stuff really is. But how does it actually work? Lots of people use lots of different devices for this, but ultimately it's all kind of the same thing. Creating noises that if you heard it played loud in the next room, you might mistake it for a real voice, and then engaging in this sort of willful, audible pareidolia. It's the exact same thing as those people who look for weird shadows on the moon and then declare they found moon bases everywhere, or the people who look at out-of-focus dust specks in out-of-focus stars and insist that they see faces in the stars. Ultimately, all this stuff, even though what the people are specifically doing is superficially different, it's all based on the same type of mistake. And as I say, I could speak generally about that for a while to round out the video, but I don't need to, because Mr. Huff is more than happy to tell us specifics about how his devices work. I mean, if there's one thing Steve Huff likes, it's talking, especially about how impressive it is that he can talk to the dead and how experienced he is and how deep of a connection he has with the spirits.
I've only seen maybe a couple other people in the world have the same kind of connection that I do.
And how much the spirits like him.
They trust me, and they've said that many times in videos here on this channel.
And how when other people do spirit sessions, the spirits still talk about him because the spirits like him just so much.
They are ready to talk to me. They know who I am. That's why hundreds of people around the world get my name through their spirit box sessions.
And about how amazing his machines are and how revolutionary they are and how it's something that's never been built before. And wow, I've single-handedly changed the world of spirit communication forever.
So the astral doorway is done, it's complete, and it's nothing like anyone or the world has ever seen.
Yeah, modesty is a virtue, Steve. Anyway, let's learn about the astral doorway.
This is such a beautiful device.
Didn't mean to stop you so soon, but is it really a device? I mean, it looks to me like it's at least 4 devices. You got a little AM/FM radio there with the red dial on it. Then you have an ISP Decimator 2 noise reduction pedal, so a noise gate that you did not make. The output of that goes into an Eventide H9 harmonizer effects processor, which you did not make. And the output of that goes into a ZT Lunchbox Junior amplifier. The only involvement you had in this whatsoever is plugging them into each other, spray painting them gold, and super gluing a couple new knobs on top.
It's called the astral doorway. I invented it. I created it.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you're proud of yourself. I wouldn't want to hurt your self-esteem. You're so lacking in that.
And as a spirit tool, it makes so much sense because it gives me the control over the spirit voice.
And that's the goal, is it? Well, obviously, I personally am not surprised by that, but I am surprised that you say it so openly. I mean, what would make sense as a tool to communicate with the spirits would be to give the spirits a lot of control over the spirit's voice. The operator, ideally, would have none. Like, if I'm using a telephone, I don't want to control the other person's voice. The only input I want to have is to make it loud enough that I can hear it properly. And beyond that, all I would want, all anyone would want for a quality communication tool, is that you can clearly hear what the other person's saying of their own volition. But you think the goal is to give you control. Okay.
See, so as I turn this dial, it's letting this in.
About long-term care facilities, a lot.
But that doesn't matter what that audio source is, because if spirits come in, they change it.
Okay, so my audio source could just be something like white noise, just me humming, or repeating 5 seconds of the same song. Really anything, right? Because apparently these spirits have the ability to modify sound waves, or possibly electronic representations of sound within a device. I'm not 100% clear on that yet. Anyway, cool. Any sound source, great.
Okay, this is on a news political radio channel that I never listen to, but you have to have talk radio. You have to have human voice.
Oh, well then already we're getting deep into the questions, Huff. Audio of a human voice is not inherently different from any other audio. It's not some special, unique thing. If these spirits have some sort of incredible ability to modify sound on the fly, well then for one thing they can probably create their own. Modifying sound and creating sound aren't that far apart. Either way it's just changing the way the air moves. But if we go with the assumption, and it is a very big assumption that these spirits need some kind of sound input source to speak, but if we go with that, it still doesn't make any sense why it would have to be human speech. What does it matter what it is at the start? And right out of the gate, you're already saying incredibly fishy things. What reason do I have to believe any of this is real?
So please understand that everything you saw here is 100% real.
Oh, that answers all my questions. Moving on. So as for the actual parts of this device and what they do, I said their names, but let's talk about what they're actually for in the context of the device. Now, first up we have the amplifier, and that's not going to do too much. That's just the thing the sound's going to come out of. Although Huff is very insistent that this is the amp you need. If you want to have good communication with the spirits, it doesn't matter that they're going to modify the sound. You got to use this amp to get that good sound. Gotta have lots of control over the spirit's voice, I guess.
Just to be clear, if you're building a portal, the ZT Lunchbox Junior is the only amp that will have this huge beefy sound. It's the only amp that will power the pedals.
Now, of course, that was on a different device he invented, but he made it out of the same parts, or some of the same parts. He's got the same amplifier, and he's got the same noise gate.
Now, this pedal is a noise reduction pedal.
And speaking of the noise gate, this is where it starts to get a little fishy again.
The most important part of the portal is over here. And it is basically the noise reduction pedal. The only one that will work and do what the portal does is the Noise Decimator 2.
To me, those few seconds raise all kinds of questions. What I heard before was that what you need is a talk radio station or some other source of human voice, which already doesn't make sense, of course, but we're just going to set that aside. So a spirit can modify the sound of a human voice to say what it wants to say. Okay, so then what makes a noise gate so important? Why should you, the user, have to have a device that modifies the audio at all? Again, why should you have to be in control of the spirit's voice? Why should you be messing with it? Well, let's take a look at how this is actually used. We saw this all through the James Randi section, but you probably didn't pay very close attention to exactly what he was doing with the device, because why would you? So let's take another look. So he turns the knob to the left while he's talking to the spirit, and then when he wants the spirit to reply, he turns the knob back. And that tells me a lot. So with this particular pedal, when the knob is all the way to the right, that means the noise gate is blocking everything, right? So he leaves it all the way to the right with the gate all the way up until he actually wants some sound to come through. Now, there's a delay in his system. I suspect that's from that effects pedal. We'll get to that one later. But what that's doing is making it so the effects processor doesn't output any audio to the amplifier right away. And this gives Huff time to play a few seconds of audio into the effects processor through the noise gate while he's still talking, and have a all that waiting done by the time he's done talking, so it seems like a more dynamic conversation. Roughly around when he stops talking is when that effects processor is going to start outputting audio into the amplifier. But you might notice that this is a dial, right? This is not a binary on-off switch. You would think that if all you were concerned with was feeding a random sample of human speech into that effects processor, what you would do is you would have the input just muted. You would have a pedal or something that just mutes, and once you're done talking and you want a response, you would press the unmute button and just leave it on for as long as the spirit wants to talk. That way the spirit's not constrained to any arbitrary length of reply, but more importantly, it would get a consistent feed of the original sound source, right? Just having a mute button in between is not going to interfere with the way the audio actually sounds. But a noise gate is a whole other different story. So like I said, when he doesn't want the spirit talking, he has that noise gate turned all the way to the max. So no sound is getting through.
That goes into this pedal here, which is a noise reduction that I have all the way up to maximum to stop the flow of audio.
And then when he wants it to talk, he turns it some arbitrary amount to the left, holds it for a second, and then turns it back. What does that actually do? Well, I'll tell you, it does not make it so all the sound suddenly gets through. It makes it so some of it does.
That, when I allow the audio in, I ask a question. Once I meditate and focus, I then turn this a little bit here, allowing some audio into the device.
Huff, you did it without even establishing a connection first. That's amazing! You don't even need to do a spirit session to talk to the spirits. This one seems like a Marvel fan. What are you gonna say back? I hope you'll be nice, Huff. Like you always say, love is the key. They trust you.
I'm not doing a session here, I'm doing a demo.
Oh, sorry, spirit. Anyway, as he says, he doesn't just let the sound source through, he lets some of it through. Now, he might have meant he only lets it go for a couple seconds, but he also said he only turns that knob a little bit to the left, and that's backed up by those videos. And do you want to know what happens when a noise gate is turned just a little bit down from the max? Well, I'll show you. In fact, I'll show you on what I just said. But he also said he only turns that knob a little bit to the left. That's backed up by the video. You want to know what happens when a noise gate is turned just a little bit down? Okay, back to normal. See, this device is not as neutral as it's being presented. It's not just innocently letting the sound through when he wants the sound to go through. As I said, if he wanted to do that, he'd use a binary mute control, or at worst, maybe like a volume control. This is neither. This is something very specific that serves the purpose of breaking up the sentences and making them sound less like they originally did. It still feels like you can make out a lot of words, and occasionally you actually can, but it's starting to sound, well, more like one of Huff's supposed spirits. So what would make this necessary? What makes a spirit that can modify sound on the fly, somehow, need you to do this for it to speak clearly? How does this help with clarity at all? Well, the answer is it doesn't. This is a preparatory step in breaking up the audio, making it sound less like the input source, making it so there's not so many recognizable words and sentences, to prepare it for further transformations in the effects processor. That's why so much importance is being placed on it. That's why only this effects pedal is the one that you need. Only this pedal will make it work the way you want it to. Meaning, only this pedal will make your spirits sound the way Huff's spirits sound. This messes up the audio in a way that Huff finds aesthetically pleasing when it finally comes out the other end of all of these different audio effects that he's applying. It's got nothing to do with spirits. Alright, and now let's go on to that big square thing with the dial and the buttons in the middle. As I said, that's the Eventide H9 Harmonizer effects processor. Despite the fact that Huff was so open about exactly what noise reduction pedal he's using, he's always seemingly reluctant to mention exactly what device this is. That's kind of interesting.
Now what we do, I'm going to take this astral doorway pedal, frequency box as I called it.
And as you might imagine, what this actually does is apply effects. Now, it's hard to say exactly what effects he has applied. Huff's customized his own set of effects for it.
This says Huff because I have two frequencies I'm really working with. And one's Huff 1, one's Huff 2.
What I do know is, like I said before, there's a several second delay.
So you let that audio in, there's a 3 second to 5 second delay.
And there's a reverb, because he actually refers to this device as a reverb, which is not true, or at least not the whole truth. Not by a long shot.
Goes into your reverb, comes out of your box.
And there's a pitch shift, because he mentions that too.
Where I have loaded in different sound frequencies, reverb frequencies, pitch frequencies, various delays.
And it definitely reverses the audio as well, at least some of the time. Yes, this device is capable of that as well.
Reverse, obviously.
Hey, editing Logicked here. I just want to point out that this definitely is not something that happens all the time. For example, the audio in the James Randi one was not reversed. If you reverse it, it sounds like it's reversed. So yeah, that audio wasn't reversed, it was just really, really messed up. And also, most likely when the effects processor says reverse, it doesn't really mean a full reverse, like taking all of the input, flipping it around, and playing it back. Because these are guitar effects, they have to happen on the fly, so it's more like a delay with reverseness. Here's what that sounds like in Reaper. So it has the same kind of effect in how it makes things sound, but it's different in the details. Anyway, back to Filmed Me. Beyond those effects, I don't know what he's using, but just the effects I've listed off so far, the delay, reverb, reverse, pitch shift, and the separate noise gate pedal, would be plenty to result in the kind of output that he's getting. But it is possible that there's more. This device might look simple, but it's Bluetooth controlled, there's an app for it with all kinds of different algorithms and settings. It's pretty damn hard to know for sure exactly which ones he's using. If I bought these devices and put them together like this, it'd almost be trivial, I think, but I'm sure not gonna do that. But it's really not important, because if there really is a spirit talking through this device with the supernatural power to modify sound to speak through that amplifier, or to modify sound as it comes out of the amplifier and propagates through the air, I don't know. However it does it, if it can do it, you don't need an effects processor in your chain. The only thing that could possibly do is make it harder to do.
All going in to try to see what works best for spirit, because spirits use sound frequencies to speak. They manipulate the audio, they change it.
No, Huff, that's what an effects processor does. If the spirits manipulated the audio and changed it, you would not need to manipulate the audio and change it, and yet you do.
What goes into the box when a spirit is here is not what comes out, right?
What goes into that box, regardless of whether a spirit is there, is not what comes out, Huff. It's an effects processor.
And that's what makes this so amazing. Spirits need audio to speak. Spirits prefer human voice as an audio source. If you give spirits a clear human voice as an audio source, they can change that the easiest.
So spirits prefer a clear human voice as an audio source. They can change that the easiest. And so instead of giving them a clear human voice as an audio source, you run it through a noise gate and then run it through an effects processor with reverb and delay and pitch shift and possibly even sometimes reversal. And then you give the spirits this audio which is not a clear human voice, which in fact at this point is not even a human voice anymore. Because why? You're contradicting yourself, Huff. If you believed what you're saying, you'd run that YouTube video straight into your amp. But you don't believe what you're saying, do you? The only actual practical purpose for any of this is to screw up the audio enough that an audience can't make out what it originally said, so that you can make up some new thing you want it to say and slap that up on the screen so other people hear it, and so that it sounds vaguely reverby and ghosty, so that it's more likely to impress your absurdly gullible audience who, and this has become a running theme on this channel, seem to have not the slightest hint of a clue about the technology you're showing them, the technology they're believing outlandish assertions about. So I'm going to call it there for this time, but I do have a lot more to say about this, and we have a lot more to look at. So come back in a week and check out part 2. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please do give the video a like and subscribe. Enormous, inexpressible thanks to all of my supporters on every platform. Hello to the email squad. We're inching our way up to 9,000 strong on there. list.logicked.com. See you next time.